Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Monday, December 13th, 2010. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the U.S. It's 4:30 p.m. in London, 12:30 in Hamilton, and in Mexico City it's 10:30. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL Instant Mail address is CATEX-TV. Former U.S. Secretary of State George P. Shultz is 90 years old today. We'll go to our main news. Main news is the weather. There was a very powerful winter storm. Actually, it's not even winter yet. It was a late fall storm that blasted across the upper Midwest over the weekend. Here's a picture of Minneapolis. Notice the stadium in the foreground. That's the Metrodome. It's not supposed to be concave. It's supposed to be a bubble. Here's what happened inside. Yes, the Teflon roof collapsed because of the weight of the snow. The stadium was declared unusable, and in fact, the National Football League game that was supposed to occur there yesterday at 1 p.m. had to be postponed and moved to Detroit, where it's being played tonight. The snow canceled 1,600 flights in Chicago. It caused at least 6 weather-related deaths in Minnesota. Nearly 2 feet of snow fell in Minnesota and in Wisconsin. The storm is fortunately, well, if you're watching from Canada, not fortunately, the storm was headed northeast toward Canada today. In Chicago, only a few inches of snow fell, but 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts blew a roof off a building at the Navy Pier and sent waves from Lake Michigan crashing onto Lakeshore Drive. In the Middle East, an enormous storm battered the eastern Mediterranean over the weekend, causing destruction in several countries and bringing an end to a 6-month drought. Lebanon, Israel, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt were all hit by severe weather, with lashing rain, hail, snow, and sandstorms wreaking havoc across the region. In Lebanon, 30-foot waves smashed into the coastline as wind speeds topped 65 miles an hour. This is on Saturday. By Sunday, the rain had turned to snow in the country's mountains, leaving drivers stranded on the roads. In Israel, a Moldovan freighter sank in the storm off the coast of Ashdod after its 11 crew members were rescued. In Egypt, temperatures plummeted as huge windstorms blew up sand, compounding problems caused by high winds and lashing rain in coastal areas. The weather also disrupted shipping in the Suez Canal. Local media reported 3 deaths in a factory collapse in the Mediterranean city of Alexandria, Egypt. The Syrian capital of Damascus was hit by a violent snowstorm. The region has been under the effects of a crippling drought caused by very high temperatures for months, and people in recent weeks have been praying for rain as the land has become dangerously parched. Well, they got that in spades. A South Korean fishing boat sank in the Antarctic Ocean's frigid waters this morning, with 22 sailors feared dead. 5 sailors were confirmed dead, 20 survivors were rescued, 17 are still missing. The 614-ton vessel pictured here went down about 1,400 miles south of New Zealand, about halfway to Antarctica. The company that owns the boat, the In-Sung Corporation, said that a South Korean fishing trawler operating nearby first contacted company officials about the sinking earlier today. In London, Bahrain-based Arab insurance group ARIG has set up a Lloyd's corporate member that will provide backing to Hardy Syndicate number 382. As part of a 2-year tenancy agreement, the newly formed ARIG Capital will underwrite a 7.5% share of the syndicate for the 2011 underwriting year. ARIG CEO Yasir Al-Barna declared himself pleased, and he said the development would take ARIG's partnership with the Hardy Group to a new level. Last year, ARIG and Hardy joined forces to create Hardy ARIG Insurance Management, a joint venture writing business on behalf of both carriers. And in Indiana, Baldwin and Lyons, a specialty property casualty insurer, appointed Joseph DeVito as new CEO, replacing Gary Miller in that role. DeVito has been with Baldwin and Lyons since 1981. He's going to retain his current duties as president and chief operating officer. Miller has been with the company for the past 45 years. He has held the title of chairman and CEO for the past 14 years. He's going to remain with the company and hold the new position of executive chairman to the board of directors of Baldwin and Lyons. The company provides coverage for large, medium, and small-sized transportation fleets. Stock market in New York is up a little bit, up about 33 points right now. We'll go to a word from our sponsors. There was a bombing on Saturday in Stockholm, Sweden. The police say it was well planned, and they are assuming that the bomber had co-plotters. The Swedish security service said that while investigators knew that the 28-year-old man carried out attacks alone, they did not rule out a bigger plot. The service is saying that the bomber was not previously known to Swedish intelligence. They said the attacker might have intended to bomb the main railroad station when the device went off prematurely. A car containing gas canisters blew up in a busy shopping area of Stockholm Saturday afternoon, followed minutes later by a blast nearby which killed the bomber and injured 2 people. They believe, they're 98% sure, that the bomber is Timur Abdulwahab, a Swedish citizen with Middle Eastern background who had lived in the UK for years. British police have been searching a property in southeast England where the gentleman is said to have lived with his wife and children. They found nothing. Excuse me. Here's a story from the Royal Gazette. And we've been saying this for months and months and months, and finally somebody is saying it in the reinsurance industry. The threat to the security of employees from the rising tide of violent crime in Bermuda has become an increasing concern for international companies. This is according to Michael Price, Chief Executive Officer of Platinum Underwriters. He told delegates this at a conference in Hamilton on Friday, that violence in Bermuda was an even more pressing issue than industry regulation or Bermuda's competitiveness as a domicile. Quote, "The one issue that I would say is most prominent in people's minds right now, and a difficult one to acknowledge, is the rising incident of violent crime and the sense of, do we feel secure having our professional and personal lives here, our families and children's here in the long run?" This is from Mr. Price. He went on to say, when we first arrived here 5 years ago, we felt very positively along these lines. As time has progressed, our sense on this has changed somewhat. He said, this is not a problem that we as an international business can solve. It's a problem that rests with the governor and government here in Bermuda. I do believe there's a will and a desire to address this problem. Mr. Price conceded that it might be provocative to suggest that violence was the most pressing issue. But he did say that Bermuda was making great strides towards regulatory equivalence with new EU solvency rules, and he said that Bermuda also remained competitive. He said the question is, how long and how sustainable is this in the long run? It can be sustainable, but we have to provide for the security and well-being of the people we employ and have to live here. We need their spouses and families to feel good about coming to Bermuda. Well, if that's not a shot across the bow of the government in Bermuda, I don't know what is. If that industry picks up and leaves, well, it's not going to be good. Here's an interesting story today. It just came out. Hector Sanz, The top regulator now in the city said that one of his priorities when he takes charge of the new bank watchdog will be to convince the public that in the future, get this, even the largest banks will be allowed to fail. The chief executives of the FSA said a key point is that orderly failure with minimal cost to the economy should not be seen as regulatory failure. He said this objective will contrast with the situation the FSA found itself in the past, namely no acceptance from the media or politicians that the FSA was not a zero-failure institution. When the FSA is abolished in 2 years, SANS will move across to the Prudential Regulatory Authority, which will be part of the Bank of England. He said that the Prudential Regulatory Authority will not be attempting to pursue a zero-failure regime. The FSA has already hired between 200 and 250 people who are going to move across to the Prudential Regulatory Authority. And back at the ranch at the FSA, UK financial service companies have found the time taken to receive regulatory approval for business expansion to have more than doubled in the past year. This is according to research released today by the law firm Reynolds Porter Chamberlain. Data from the law firm coming from the FSA following a Freedom of Information request showed that the average number of days taken by the agency to give approval to move into new lines or classes of business has increased by 130%, all the way up to about 82 days. The law firm said that it believes two factors have triggered this delay: the FSA's adoption of a more intrusive approach and increased staff turnover at the agency, which is going to be broken up in 2 years. All three of the FSA's managing directors have resigned since the general British election. In August, it was reported that 128% year-on-year increase in the number of staff resigning from the regulator had been noted. Well, I guess somebody else is reading the memos coming from the State Department that Russia is essentially a mafia state. News from Arkansas that Walmart is closing its Moscow office amid an a lack of acquisition opportunities. It's abandoning its long-running quest to enter the Russian market. Walmart said, since we decided to enter the Russian market through acquisition, and since there is no clear acquisition partner in Russia, there is not a business reason to continue our Moscow representative office. The company noted that they continue to be excited about their international business, including markets in which they already operate, such as Brazil, China, and India, where they have tremendous growth opportunity. Well, I guess you knew that this would happen. It's hard to believe. But tourists may soon be able to tour the sealed area around the Chernobyl nuclear plant, site of the world's worst nuclear accident. The Ukraine Emergency Ministry said that the so-called Chernobyl zone will be open next year for those who wish to learn more about the nuclear tragedy that occurred 24 years ago. In April of '86, the Chernobyl reactor number 4 exploded, spewing radiation over much of Europe. Hundreds of thousands of people were resettled. Health problems persist. Officials say the site is now safe for tours. The ministry also said this morning that it hopes to finish building a new, safer shell for the exploded reactor by the year 2015. That $500 million project is going to be financed by international donors. That whole city is a ghost town. There's absolutely nobody there. But I guess beginning next year, you're going to be able to go in, presumably in a lead-lined bus, to see the ghost town. Well, welcome back to Monday, one of the last full weeks before Christmas. If we have any breaking news, I'll go back and tell you. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.